7 investigators got their hands on this memo, and it was recommended in this memo that Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee be put on administrative leave. But after this memo came out, he was not. The head of Boise's Office of Police Accountability wrote the memo to Mayor McLean on April 5th of this year. Investigative reporter Alexandra Duggan spoke with some officers who spurred the writing of the memo, and that memo to McLean and her chief of staff says that Chief Lee should be placed on paid leave, pending an investigation into internal complaints filed by 9 Boise police officers. It was recommended that a third party investigate the complaints to give them another set of eyes. It was also recommended that officers be interviewed again after their initial complaint interviews. But some officers tell Duggan they were never interviewed again, and they believe their concerns were ignored. KTVB investigative reporter Alexandra Duggan shares the story.
Boise's Office of Police Accountability conducted an investigation into Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee after 9 officers filed complaints against him. Those complaints detailed a hostile work environment, name-calling, and nepotism. Human Resources sent the officers to Internal Affairs to file their complaints. But because Lee oversees internal affairs, the officers thought they couldn't trust the department and went to the Office of Police Accountability instead. Jesus Hara with the OPA recommended in a memo to Mayor McLean that Lee be placed on leave. He also recommended a third party do more interviews with the officers for the investigation. The follow-up interviews never happened, according to former BPD Captain Matt Bringleson.
To my knowledge, it didn't happen. I certainly wasn't interviewed again, so they may have just gotten rid of that idea altogether, but I didn't get talked to again.
He was one of the officers who filed a complaint this spring. He noted many reasons, but said the last straw was feeling like he was being pushed out.
So I served the city of Boise for almost 25 years, quarter century, over half my life. And it got to a point where I just couldn't come in every day anymore because it was just so hostile and caustic, and it was just impossible to function. So I got to a point where I had to reach out and get professional mental health counseling. And when I came back, I was being asked regularly, hey, how much longer are you going to stay? When are you going to quit? How much longer are you going to stay? It was clear that I wasn't wanted there anymore.
Former Captain Tom Fleming also felt like he was being pushed out and that his ideas and experience was unneeded. Fleming does not want his face on camera because of the job he's currently working.
I was in a meeting with the chief, and we were talking about an internal investigation, and he said, this is the way I want this done, and I wasn't really on board with it. I kind of put up a little bit of resistance, just professionally, just told him that the reason it was being done this way was this, and he said, I want it done this way, and that's it. And if this gets to be too much for you, you can go to Percy and look at your retirement options.
Boise Mayor Lauren McLean told KTVB in an exclusive interview Friday that the department is asking for change.
Along with change, when we're asking officers to change the way they do some of their practices and to accept reforms that the council have passed, like no-knock warrants, strangleholds, use of force, body cams, and new training protocols, we need management that supports that change.
McLean said the public can be assured that they are still safe.
I can assure you, and I want to assure the public, that we're getting to the bottom of this. We're asking many questions. We've actively reviewed reports we've received, have commissioned third-party reviews, and provided and received feedback. We've looked at policies that needed change, and we've set management expectations and will hold management accountable.
The mayor's chief of staff, Courtney Washburn, said the city did do its own investigation. In a statement to 7 Investigates, Washburn said she reviewed the information and asked for a third-party opinion. She wrote, that independent investigation determined that there was no violation of city or BPD policy or procedure that would support the action of administrative leave in regards to the chief of police. The investigation also indicated that several complaints were already under investigation by other agencies and or the Office of Internal Affairs. Bringleson said that 5 officers left under Lee, wiping out an entire command staff. And morale, Fleming said, seemed terribly low under the chief.
I had rank and file officers from guys that had been there for a couple years or less, all the way up to 25-year officers, to sergeants, lieutenants, other command members, and professional staff members, civilian employees of our department that would come in and literally sit in my office and cry about things that were going on.
In Fleming's 30-year career, he has never seen any officer continue working pending an investigation, criminal or not.
when this happened and he was not suspended, that really blew up the amount of people coming to my office and complaining, want to know why we had a particular employee who had allegedly done something. He was suspended for this alleged crime, but why is the chief not? And the only thing I could tell them is that when this first started, is the explanation that was given to me from city legal was that the chief has a different boss than the rest of you.
KTVB obtained emails from an internal source with BPD detailing how Chief Lee allegedly called his employees stupid and dumb, made employees cry, called Boiseans derogatory terms, and retaliated against certain officers who spoke out against him and favored officers he brought in from Portland in meetings. OPA investigated these complaints and documented it all in an entire binder's worth full of records. They recommended on April 5th that Lee be put on leave. The officers waited. When the officers asked OPA about the investigation, they were told on May 9th that the mayor had an outside counsel review the investigation. Jesus Hara wrote in an email to an officer, quote, "I was informed that the city has completed their review and it was determined that there were no violations of city BPD policy or procedure. The outside counsel did suggest an update to some policies and procedures to ensure clarity moving forward. The OPA office does not plan on investigating this further, as it has turned into a personnel matter."
Please raise your right arm.
Bringleson said that when the chief was hired, he was ready to adapt to any decisions he would make, and that he was actually very excited for the transition.
It was incumbent upon me to embrace change, and that's what I did at the beginning. As far as, were we disgruntled about it, I loved my job. I had the dream job. I had a fantastic career. I was nearing the twilight. It should have been the best time of my career. I was in what I consider to be the most important job a police officer can have. I was the patrol commander. I deeply cared about every one of the officers that worked for me, my K-9 units, my civilians that worked for me. I deeply cared and met with them regularly.
Even after retirement, Fleming and Bringleson, two veteran law enforcement officers, still loved their teams and their BPD officers. They are sad that they have to leave them behind.
To be honest, I felt guilty for leaving when I did, because I felt like I was leaving some of these guys behind in that condition to basically fight on their own, so to speak. And so there's a lot of angst in that decision.
And Alexandra Duggan joins us live here on the 208. And Alex, I want to dig into some of the stuff you talked about in your story. Some might say that the officers that spoke to you and that complained, maybe they have an axe to grind. Maybe they have a personal problem with Chief Lee. Maybe there's only a couple of people that just didn't like the way the chief was really doing things when he came here from Portland. What insight do you have on that conversation about this being system-wide or a few people with an axe to grind?
Well, Joe, it's not just a couple officers who are disgruntled or upset. This is a lot of officers that have an issue with the alleged name-calling and belittling and hostile work environment that is taking place. And I mean, Tom Fleming even said these officers would come into my office and cry. They would just cry to me about this. And, they felt that their concerns weren't being heard or wouldn't be heard because just of the politics surrounding the chief coming in from Portland.
And we heard from the mayor, and the mayor's office has said to us, they didn't find any reason to put Chief Lee on leave, in terms of city policy during the criminal investigation. I know we've seen questions today about, okay, well, why wasn't he put on leave? Was this unusual? Do officers usually get put on leave like this?
Right, so Fleming did tell me that this is unusual, especially we know that there was a criminal investigation that had taken place. Lee never faced charges for that, but Fleming did say it was unusual he wasn't placed on leave for that. It is unusual now because officers can be placed on leave for certain things like having a relationship with a confidential informant outside of work. They can be placed on leave for things like that, and Lee was never placed on leave. And
we know you spoke to the mayor here today, and these allegations, the situation, it is very serious, and the obvious question becomes, where does the city of Boise go from here? How do they reconcile these alleged incidents that's going on here? Did the mayor have any insight on where they go from here?
Well, Joe, the mayor did say that there was no policy violations for this investigation, so it wasn't really continued further. But she did say that it warrants further discussion. There will be further discussion with the Office of Police Accountability, the chief, the city, and the police union. And the public is going to be made aware of anything that happens in regards to this situation, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Alexandra Duggan here with us on the 208 on your Friday. She's going to keep digging into this story. It's far from over, but for now, we're going to step aside. The 208 continues right after this.
And we're staying on top of that breaking news just into our newsroom. Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee has resigned from his position with the Boise Police Department. It's effective next month on October 14th, and the resignation comes at the request of Boise Mayor Lauren McLean. It also comes just 24 hours after KTVB's investigative reporter Alexandra Duggan her report about Chief Lee and the complaints within the department. Lee will be on leave for the rest of his tenure. McLean has appointed retired officer Ron Weiniger as acting chief. He's expected to start on Tuesday, September 27th. Weiniger is well known to the community and to the department, having spent 27 years as a Boise police officer. And you can see that full report right now at ktvb.com.